The nurse's shoes clicked down the hospital hallway as I stood frozen, my rough aging hands shaking. Dad, Mom's cancer treatment is your problem, not ours. My son had told me, his tone as cold as the January frost outside. My daughter just nodded, barely looking up from her phone. That night, as Linda's breathing grew weaker, I swore to myself they would understand one day that turning your back on family carries a price beyond anything they could imagine. My name is Robert Hayes. At 64, I thought I knew what family loyalty meant. I'd spent 42 years working as a mechanic in Denver. My palms permanently stained black from oil. My back worn down from years bent under hoods. Every ache, every scar on my knuckles, I earned them for my family. For my children, for Linda. The oncologist's office that October smelled of antiseptic and sorrow. Linda sat close beside me, her fingers laced through mine. Dr. Collins laid it out in simple, devastating words: stage 4, pancreatic cancer. The diagnosis hung like a noose in the air. There was an experimental treatment, he explained. Something new from Johns Hopkins. But insurance wouldn't touch it. When he named the cost, my gut dropped. $200,000. That night, I called Michael first. My oldest, 38 now, who'd built himself a shiny empire in commercial real estate. His corner office looked down over downtown Denver, a monument of glass and steel. I remembered helping with the down payment for his first building. I'd worked double shifts just to make it possible. "Dad, what's up?" "I've got a dinner with clients in 20 minutes, he said, his voice already impatient. "It's your mother, Michael, the cancer. It's bad. There's a treatment, but how much?" He cut me off. $200,000. "I know it's a lot, but maybe if we work together a payment plan." His laugh stung like a slap. Not the warm laugh of my little boy, but something cold, dismissive. "Dad, that's not my problem. Mom's health is on you. You should have planned better." "Michael, she's your mother. I've got to go. Good luck with everything." The line went dead. My hands shook as I dialed Emily. My daughter, 35, ran PR for a tech startup. Her Instagram glittered with champagne brunches, Paris hotels, and designer purses. Linda and I had paid for her journalism degree, her semester abroad, her wedding at the Broadmoor. "Daddy." She sounded distracted, music and laughter in the background. "Emily, honey, I need to talk to you about Mom." Oh God, what now? The irritation in her voice cut deep. I told her everything: the cancer, the treatment, the cost. Silence stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. "Emily, are you still there?" "Look, Dad, I feel bad about Mom, I really do. But $200,000, that's insane. Michael and I talked about this. You're getting older and these things are, well, they're yours to deal with. We have our own lives, our own bills. Don't make it sound like we owe you." "We spent our futures on yours," I whispered. "Nobody asked you to?" she snapped. "I've got to go. Maybe try a GoFundMe or something." The kitchen felt colder when I hung up. Linda shuffled in, wrapped in the flannel nightgown I'd given her last Christmas. She looked so small, so fragile. "Did you reach them?" she asked softly. I couldn't break her heart. "They're thinking it over. You know how busy they are." She smiled, that trusting smile I'd fallen for 45 years ago. "They're good kids. They'll help. They always do." That night I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to her strained breathing. On the nightstand sat a photo of the four of us at Emily's college graduation. We looked so happy. When had that family become strangers by 3:15 a.m.? I knew what I had to do. I'd raise the money myself. Sell the car, cash out the pension mortgage, the house, whatever it took. But in those dark hours, another truth settled hard in my chest. My children had chosen, and choices like broken engines always came with consequences. The next 3 months blurred with hospital corridors and bleeding bank accounts. First went the Chevy truck I'd rebuilt with my own hands, the same one Michael had learned to drive, in $22,000. Then my tools, some passed down from my father, each one heavy with memory, $8,000 more. I drained my pension, swallowed the penalty, without flinching, $63,000. Still not enough. The bank approved a second mortgage, but even that couldn't cover the full amount. I scraped enough together for 3 treatments. 3 chances at more time. For a while it seemed to work. Linda's color returned, her appetite came back for a couple weeks. I let myself hope. "Robert," she whispered one February evening, her voice weak, her hand barely squeezing mine. "Have Michael and Emily come to see me. I keep thinking I hear them in the hall." But when I woke up, it was only her. The lie came naturally by then. "They call every day sweetheart." "They're just buried in work. Michael's closing a big deal in Chicago. Emily's launching a new campaign." She gave me the faintest smile. "Tell them I love them. Tell them I understand." By the 3rd treatment, the cancer had outpaced the medicine, spreading faster than ever. Dr. Collins pulled me aside, his eyes carrying the weight of failure. There was nothing more they could do. Hospice was the only option left. I brought Linda home on a bitter Thursday afternoon. The house felt cavernous, empty of warmth. I'd turned our bedroom into a makeshift hospital. Medical bed IV stand monitors that beeped through the night. I became her nurse, her cook, her shadow in the darkness. I read her favorite novels aloud, replayed our wedding song until the speakers crackled, and held her hand when the morphine couldn't quiet the pain. "Robert," she whispered at 2:45 a.m. on a Tuesday, her voice paper thin. "I'm here, love. I want to see them just once more, please." My fingers shook, dialing Michael. Straight to voicemail. Emily finally picked up after 4 rings. "Dad, it's the middle of the night. She's asking for you. Both of you. Please, Emily." "She doesn't have long. I'm in Los Angeles for a conference. I can't just drop everything. She's dying." The words cracked in my throat. "I'll try to make it back for the funeral. I have to go." I sat at Linda's bedside, watching snow dust the window. Her breath rattled shallowly. I held her hand, feeling how loose the wedding ring had become on her thin finger. "They send their love." I lied. "They're on their way." Her hand squeezed mine, once barely there. At 4:17 a.m. on March the 3rd, the monitors gave their last sound. Linda Hayes, the love of my life, the mother of my children, passed, believing she was cherished by the family we had built. I called Michael first. His assistant answered, promised to pass along the message. Emily's phone went to voicemail. I left word with the funeral details. Saturday, 6 p.m., Riverside Cemetery. The day came gray and drizzling. I stood by the graveside, rain pooling on the polished wood. 30 chairs had been arranged. 28 stayed empty. Only Linda's sister Susan and my brother Frank were there. "Where are they?" Susan whispered, scanning the road. "They're not coming," I said flatly. The minister began. I stared at the 2 white-ribbon chairs marked family. The rain soaked through my coat, but I didn't move. I remained even after everyone left, after the casket lowered, after the grave was sealed beneath heavy wet soil. That night, I sat alone in the kitchen, Linda's coffee cup still sitting on the counter. My phone buzzed. A text from Michael. "Sorry for your loss. Couldn't get away from work." Nothing from Emily. I walked to Linda's jewelry box, pulled out her wedding band. The inscription read, "Forever and always RH." I slipped it onto my pinky, the weight pressing against my skin. "I'm sorry, Linda," I whispered to the empty house. "I'm sorry I couldn't give you the one thing you wanted at the end." Lightning lit up the kitchen, and in that instant, I made a vow knot to Linda. She was beyond earthly pain. This vow was for me. Michael and Emily had decided long ago. To them, family was optional. Love was conditional. But every choice carries a cost, and I would be the one to collect. The house echoed with her absence. Every room haunted by her laughter, every photo frame a ghost of what we once were. At 3:30 a.m., I found myself in the basement surrounded by boxes of our life. Handmade Christmas ornaments, report cards with gold stars, Father's Day cards scrawled in crayon, "World's Best Dad." I pulled out an old leather album, its pages yellow with time. Michael at 8, grinning with his new bike I'd worked 14 straight hours to afford. Emily at her recital. I'd skipped a union meeting, lost a promotion just to be in the front row. Their graduations where Linda and I sat proud despite drained savings. Page after page of sacrifice dressed up as celebration. My hand lingered on a photo from Michael's wedding. We'd taken out a loan for that reception at the Brown Palace. Linda wore a dress from Goodwill, but she made sure his in-laws saw only grace and pride. We did everything right, I muttered to the empty basement. Where did we go wrong? But I knew. We'd given them everything except the understanding of what it truly cost. As dawn crept in, I brewed coffee, the kitchen table crowded with bills, hospital charges, funeral expenses, second mortgage notices. And beneath them, a card I'd saved for 2 decades, Charles Bennett, attorney at law. Charles and I went way back when he was just a broke law student, and I'd kept his old car running free of charge so he could make it to classes. He'd once told me, "If you ever need anything, call me." He was no struggling kid anymore. Corporate law investigations, the kind of work done in shadows. At 8 a.m., sharp, I dialed. "Robert, my God, it's been years. How are you?" "Linda's gone, Charles." Silence. "I'm so sorry." "She was remarkable. What can I do? I need your help." "Not charity, I'll pay. But I need someone who understands that justice and law aren't always the same." That afternoon, I sat across from him in his downtown office, telling him everything. The cancer, the pleas, the abandonment, the empty funeral. His expression darkened. "What do you want, Robert? What's your endgame?" I set Linda's ring on his desk. They chose money over family. I want them to lose what they chose. I want them to understand actions have consequences. Charles leaned back, studying me. "You're talking about your children?" "No," I said coldly. "I'm talking about 2 strangers who just share my DNA. My children died the day they let their mother die alone." He nodded slowly. "I'll need records. Bank accounts, business dealings, anything questionable." "How do we get that?" A thin smile crept across his face. "Leave that to me. But Robert, once we start this, there's no going back." "Are you certain?" Frank asked quietly. I thought of Linda's last words, asking for children who never came. I've never been more certain of anything. Over the next month, Frank worked his contacts. He introduced me to Angela Park, a forensic accountant who had once been employed at Michael's firm before being forced out for refusing to alter financial statements. She leaned over her coffee cup one morning, sliding a thick folder across the table. "Your son isn't just unethical," she said flatly. "He's been defrauding investors, hiding money in shell companies. The authorities would be very interested in this." For Emily, information came from an unlikely source, her former roommate Rachel, whom she'd kicked out years ago for not fitting her polished image. "She's drowning," Rachel told me with barely hidden satisfaction. $150,000 in credit card debt, 3 months late on her condo payments. She's juggling lies with creditors. That whole perfect lifestyle, it's smoke and mirrors. That night I sat in my basement workshop, surrounded by the tools of my trade, and now the instruments of my revenge. Each file, each testimony, each scrap of evidence was carefully organized in a notebook. Linda's picture sat on the workbench, her eyes following me. "I'm not the man you married," I whispered, "but I'm the man they created." I titled the notebook in neat block letters, Operation Consequence. Phase 1. Michael's professional destruction. Awesome. Phase 2. Emily's social collapse. Phase 3. Total financial reckoning. They had taught me that family meant nothing when money was on the table. Now I would show them what nothing truly looked like. I would strip away everything they chose over their mother's life, piece by piece, until they were as empty as those front row seats at Linda's funeral. The game had begun, and I had nothing left to lose. The preparation took 2 full months. 2 months of late nights, mapping connections, verifying documents, building an airtight case. Angela's expertise proved invaluable. She revealed the elaborate structure of Michael's fraud, skimming investor funds, inflating property values, funneling money through offshore accounts. She pointed to one highlighted line on a spreadsheet. This single transaction siphoned $800,000 from the Riverside project. Investors think it went to construction. In reality, it bought his house in Aspen. I studied the files, my mechanic's brain appreciating the hidden engineering. Like an engine that had been tampered with, it all looked fine on the surface, but Angela had spotted the forged parts, the falsified numbers. For Emily, Rachel provided another kind of ammunition: screenshots of designer purchases, while claiming she couldn't pay creditors, forged employment records submitted for loans, and an email chain where she bragged about stupid banks buying her fake income claims. Frank reviewed everything with surgical precision. "This is solid, Robert. With Michael, we're talking federal charges, wire fraud, tax evasion, embezzlement. The SEC will eat this up. For Emily, it's civil fraud. Not prison, but enough to shatter her reputation." "How do we proceed?" I asked. "Anonymous tips. Completely untraceable. I'll leak Michael's files to the SEC and the Denver Post at the same time. Authorities will investigate, the media will swarm. For Emily, we'll go directly to her creditors and the credit bureaus. Once they start digging, her empire collapses." The next week, I prepared the packages. Every document was copied, annotated, and sorted to highlight the most damning points. I wore gloves, used a printer bought in cash 2 towns away. Frank showed me how to leave no trace, no fingerprints, no digital trail, nothing linking back to Robert Hayes. The night before execution, I sat in Linda's sewing room. She'd been making a quilt for a grandchild she would never meet. The fabric squares still lay scattered. I picked up a soft blue patch cut from one of Michael's old shirts. "Tomorrow it begins," I whispered into the empty room. At 5:00 a.m. Tuesday, I drove into Denver in a rental car paid for in cash. 6 envelopes mailed from 6 different post offices across the city: Securities and Exchange Commission, FBI Financial Crimes Division, Denver Post Investigative Desk, local TV stations. Each package identical, each one devastating. For Emily, the delivery would be more targeted. I mailed the packages. 3 went to Emily's major creditors, each stuffed with proof of fraud. Another to the credit bureau's fraud division. The last one to her company's HR department. They deserved to know their head of media relations was buried in debt and lying to banks. By noon, I was back home. The rental car returned. The gloves reduced to ash in the fire pit out back. I made myself lunch, folded laundry, pretended life was normal, while across the city, fuses were quietly burning toward inevitable explosions. The first call came at 4:20 p.m. Frank's voice barely contained his excitement. "The SEC has already contacted Michael's firm. Several accounts are frozen. My contact says they've never seen such thorough evidence in an anonymous tip." By that evening, I was glued to news sites. Nothing yet. These things took time. I forced myself to eat dinner, keeping up the routine. At 10 p.m., I poured a mug of Linda's favorite tea when my phone rang. Unknown number. "Mr. Hayes, this is Amanda Lee from the Denver Post. I'm investigating serious allegations about your son's business practices. Would you care to comment?" I let surprise and confusion creep into my voice. Allegations. What are you talking about? Michael's a successful businessman. Sir, we've received documents suggesting extensive fraud at his firm. Are you saying you know nothing about this? I don't understand. Michael and I aren't close. He's always tied up with work. What kind of fraud? She pressed for details. But I played my role perfectly, the bewildered father caught off guard. When I hung up, I allowed myself a faint smile. The bait was taken. By midnight, I had built a monitoring system, news alerts for Michael's name, his company, his investors. Credit monitoring to track Emily's collapse. Everything routed to a burner email, no trace to me. At 1:00 a.m., I crawled into bed. Linda's pillow still carried the faint lavender scent of her shampoo. In the dark, I whispered into the emptiness. It started, my love. They chose money over your life. Now they'll learn what it means to lose everything they worshipped more than you. Lightning flashed, illuminating the notebook on my nightstand. Phase 1 was in motion, dominoes carefully lined up. The first had tipped. Soon they all would fall until Michael and Emily were buried under the rubble of their own choices. I closed my eyes. Linda's ring cold against my finger. For the first time since her death, I slept without dreams. The explosion came faster than I expected. By Wednesday morning, Michael's face was splashed across the Denver Post's business section, major real estate firm under federal investigation for fraud. The article laid out the allegations, with surgical detail citing anonymous sources and leaked documents. His corporate headshot stared back at me, the confident grin now twisted into something predatory under the headline. I sat in a small downtown cafe, anonymous, among strangers watching the news unfold on my phone. At 6:00 a.m., SEC agents had raided Michael's office, hauling out boxes of files. Trading in his company's stock was suspended. Clients were bolting. My phone buzzed. Robert Tern on Channel 9. Frank said simply. The cafe TV was already tuned in. There was Michael ambushed outside his building, reporters jabbing microphones at him. His polished image was gonity, crooked hair, a mess, eyes frantic. These allegations are completely baseless, he snapped. This is a witch hunt. My lawyers will be filing defamation suits against everyone spreading these lies. But I recognized the fear under the bluster, the same look he'd worn at 16 when I caught him stealing from Linda's purse. Deny, deflect, attack. His playbook hadn't changed. By noon, the scandal had gone national. CNBC ran segments on the Denver real estate implosion. Michael's largest investors scrambled to distance themselves. Weston Holdings, his biggest backer, released a statement expressing shock and disappointment and announced immediate audits of all ventures tied to him. That afternoon, I drove past his office. News vans clogged the street. Security blocked the doors. Through the glass, I watched employees carrying out boxes. The exodus had begun. 43 people worked there. 43 families now facing ruin because of Michael's greed. A pang of guilt cut through me, but then I remembered Linda dying alone while Michael counted his profits. Thursday triggered phase 2. I was refilling Linda's bird feeders when my monitoring alerts pinged. Emily's primary creditor, American Express, had frozen her accounts after reviewing evidence of application fraud. Within hours, the dominoes toppled. Visa, MasterCard, even her auto lender all opened investigations. But Emily's unraveling was nothing like Michael's public takedown. Hers was a quieter collapse, a private apocalypse that leaked out only through digital traces she couldn't hide. Her Instagram, usually a glossy stream of champagne brunches and luxury hauls, went dead for 2 full days. Then at 11:43 p.m., a new post appeared, a tired motivational quote about weathering storms and fake friends showing their true colors. The comments erupted with questions. Where was the Europe trip you'd been planning? Why are you selling your designer bags on Poshmark? Rachel forwarded me screenshots from Emily's old circle of friends. The whispers had begun. declined credit cards at trendy restaurants. Her condo suddenly listed for urgent sale. The perfect facade was cracking, exposing the rot beneath. Friday afternoon, I was going over Angela's latest findings when my phone lit up with a familiar number. Michael's personal cell. I let it ring 4 times before I answered. "Hello, Dad." His voice sounded hollow, defeated. "I need your help." I stayed quiet, letting him talk. "The FBI froze my accounts. All of them. My lawyers need a $500,000 retainer just to get started. I can't access anything. The house, the cars, everything's tied up. I need you to mortgage your place. I'll pay you back double when this is cleared up. It's all a setup. Someone's framing me." I thought of Linda selling her mother's ring to help pay for Michael's MBA. "I'm sorry, son. That's your problem, not mine." The silence stretched before he snapped. "Are you seriously throwing my own words back at me? This is different." "How?" "Because I'm your son. Family helps family. Your mother was family too." "That's not—" "I couldn't, Dad, please. I'm begging you." "I beg too," I said softly. "The answer is no. You vindictive old bastard. You're enjoying this, aren't you? Watching me burn?" "Michael, I'm just being realistic. You have your own life, your own problems to figure out." "Isn't that what you told me?" He cursed, threatened, pleaded for 10 more minutes. I listened to it all, remembering his cold dismissal when Linda was given a death sentence. When his words finally ran dry, I spoke. "Your mother died believing you loved her. I made sure of that. It was my last gift to her. But that lie ends now. Goodbye, Michael." I ended the call and blocked his number. That evening, I found myself at Riverside Cemetery. The groundskeeper nodded as I passed. I had become a familiar face. Linda's headstone was simple, just the way she wanted. I knelt beside it, pulling weeds at the base. "Phase 1 is complete," I told her. "Michael's empire is collapsing. By Monday, the charges will be filed. His assets seized. That empire he built on lies and theft gone." The wind rustled the oak branches, and for a moment I could almost hear her voice. "Don't let hatred consume you, Robert." But it wasn't hatred. It was balance. Cause and effect. The universe correcting itself. On the drive home, my phone buzzed with new alerts. Emily's employer had placed her on administrative leave, citing pending investigation. Michael's firm had already filed for bankruptcy protection. Local news outlets were calling it Black Friday for Denver's golden children. Only one more phase remained, the final reckoning, the strike that would cut deepest. Emily's downward spiral accelerated over the weekend. By Saturday morning, her carefully polished online persona had become a digital wreck. At 2:13 a.m., her Instagram story went live, shaky videos of her packing boxes in her condo, mascara streaked down her face. "They're liars," she slurred, clearly drunk. All of them jealous, pathetic liars who can't stand to see a woman succeed. But the proof shouted louder than her denials. A viral Twitter thread exposed her fraudulent loan applications, complete with screenshots and documents. Emily Hayes' fraud was trending across Denver. Her influencer friends cut ties with ruthless precision, deleting photos, removing tags, rewriting their narratives to erase her. I watched it unfold from my kitchen table, sipping coffee from Linda's favorite mug. The local news had latched onto the scandal. Social media influencer faces fraud allegations. They plastered Emily's own Instagram photos beside headlines. Her designer handbags and beach vacations contrasted with bankruptcy filings and forged documents. By Sunday, I had unexpected visitors. I was in the garage rearranging the tools I'd nearly sold off when a black Mercedes rolled into my driveway. Michael climbed out first, but he wasn't alone. Emily stepped from the passenger side. Both looked like ghosts of their former lives. Michael's $1,000 suit was wrinkled, his jaw rough with stubble. Emily wore sweatpants and an old college hoodie, her once perfect hair scraped into a messy bun. They looked like strangers wearing my children's faces. "We need to talk," Michael said flatly. I set down my wrench, wiped my hands on a rag. "Talk. Someone's destroying us." Emily's voice cracked. "This isn't random, Dad. It's deliberate. Somebody who knows us, our businesses, our weaknesses." I leaned against the workbench. "And you came to me because—" Michael's eyes narrowed. "Because everyone else around us is under investigation. Partners, friends, everyone. But not you. Maybe that's because I'm just an old mechanic who paid his taxes and lived within his means. Cut the act." Michael stepped forward. "Did you do this? Did you destroy your own children?" I looked him dead in the eye. "I haven't had children since March 3rd at 4:17 a.m., the moment your mother died waiting for you." Emily broke down, tears streaking her face. "We made a mistake." "Okay, we were wrong. Is that what you want to hear? We were selfish and wrong, and we're sorry." "You're sorry now?" I asked. "Now that you've lost everything? Were you sorry while she was dying? Were you sorry at her funeral?" Michael's desperation was showing. "We can make it right. We'll go to her grave, apologize. We'll do better. Just, please help us stop this." I laughed, a sound that made them both flinch. "Apologize to a headstone. She can't hear you anymore. That chance died with her." "So you did do this," Emily whispered. "You destroyed us for revenge." "I didn't have to destroy you," I said evenly. "You did that yourselves with greed and lies. Someone just made sure the right people knew where to look." "We'll go to the police," Michael threatened. "Tell them you're behind this. Tell them what? That your father gave evidence of crimes you actually committed, that he exposed the frauds you actually ran, no ahead." They stood frozen in my garage, strangers who shared my DNA, finally realizing they had no leverage, no escape. "What do you want?" Emily finally asked. "What will it take to make this stop?" I walked to my tool chest, pulled out the folder I had prepared for this exact moment. "Sign these." Michael snatched the papers, eyes darting as he read. His face drained of color. "These are promissory notes for everything you ever spent on us. Education, weddings, down payments. This is over $3,200,000 and change. Every penny Linda and I invested in you. Plus interest. Sign them. And maybe the final phase doesn't happen." Emily's voice was barely a whisper. "Final phase. The IRS hasn't gotten their package yet. 20 years of tax returns," Michael with some very creative interpretations. "And Emily, your employer doesn't know about the company credit card you've been charging personal expenses to. Senor Monday morning brings fresh hell." They looked at me, then at each other. The man who'd taught them to ride bikes, who'd worked himself into the ground for their dreams, now standing as their executioner. "You're insane," Michael muttered. "No," I said calmly. "I'm a father who learned that love without consequences creates monsters. Sign." They signed. Hands trembling, eyes wet. But they signed. I walked them back to the Mercedes. As Michael started the engine, I leaned into Emily's window. "Your mother's last words were about you both. She died believing you were racing to see her. I gave her that lie as a final kindness. But I won't give it to you. Live with the truth." The car pulled away, leaving me in the fading sunlight. The sky glowed the color of old blood. Tomorrow, Frank would file the promissory notes with the court, legally binding. Every asset they thought they still owned would be chained down with liens. The implosion was swift and merciless. Within days, Michael and Emily turned on each other like cornered animals. Whatever unity they had shown in my garage shattered when they realized the depth of their mutual ruin. It began with a Facebook post from Emily at 3:41 a.m., Tuesday, when your own family exploits your trust. Some people would rather drag everyone else down than ever admit their own guilt. The subtext was clear. Emily was pointing the finger at Michael. He fired back through his attorney, releasing a statement that his sister had been fully aware of his business dealings and had directly benefited, accepting expensive gifts and seed money that all came from dirty funds. He produced proof the down payment on her condo, the startup capital for her failed wellness company designer purchases, charged to his corporate account. By Wednesday, their feud was public. Emily sat for an interview with a lifestyle blogger, painting herself as a pawn of her brother's manipulation. She claimed Michael had pressured her into financial fraud, that she'd been too afraid of her powerful older brother to refuse. Michael countered with leaked emails, Emily begging him for money, promising she'd say whatever was needed to get loans approved. Each new revelation pulled them both deeper into the quicksand. I sat back and watched their implosion from the sidelines, monitoring every update through the news and social media. The same siblings who had once joined forces to abandon their dying mother were now in open competition to destroy each other. Frank called it mutually assured destruction. He pointed out that their public accusations were handing prosecutors even more ammunition. By Thursday, Angela sent me another update. Michael's criminal trial had been scheduled for September. The FBI had uncovered far more than we'd given them over a decade of systematic fraud, totaling nearly $12 million. He was staring down 30 years in federal prison. Emily's case, while not criminal, was no less devastating. Every creditor had come calling. Her wages were garnished, her accounts frozen. The lifestyle brand she'd carefully curated was worthless. Companies erased her from their PR campaigns, citing reputation concerns. That evening, I got an unexpected call from Susan Linda's sister. "Robert, I've been following the news, Michael and Emily." "I know." "Is this really what Linda would have wanted?" I gripped the phone tighter. Linda wanted to see her children before she died. 5 minutes of their time when it mattered. What she wanted stopped mattering to them long ago. "They're still your children." "No, Susan. My children died the day they chose money over their mother's life. What's left is just consequences finding their rightful owners." Friday brought another set of visitors, not Michael or Emily, but their spouses, or soon-to-be ex-spouses. Michael's wife, Patricia, showed up first, pulling into the driveway in a rental instead of her usual Range Rover. "Mr. Hayes," she said, standing on my porch in a flawless designer suit despite the ruin surrounding her. "I need to know, did Michael ever tell you about the fraud?" "He told me nothing. We haven't been close in years." She studied me, eyes searching for cracks. "He's claiming you knew everything, that you taught him these schemes. I taught him how to change oil and check his tire pressure. Everything else he learned himself." Patricia's expression hardened. "I'm filing for divorce, taking the kids to my mother's in California. I just wanted you to know, Linda was always so kind to me. I'm sorry I didn't come when she was sick. Michael said it would upset her too much." Another lie, I guess. I simply said, "Take care of your children, Patricia." An hour later, Emily's husband, Mark, showed up. Or rather, her former husband. Their divorce had been finalized at record speed once her financial mess became public. 3 years of marriage, he said without greeting. 3 years of lies. "Did you know she had $150,000 in hidden debt when we got married?" I knew nothing about my daughter's finances. He shook his head bitterly. "She's toxic. She destroyed my credit, my reputation. My business partners think I was part of her scams. I've already lost 2 major contracts just by being connected to her." Mark's words hung in the air before he turned and stormed off his tires, squealing as he tore out of my driveway. By nightfall, the family tree had been stripped to its bare trunk. Michael's wife was gone, children in tow. Emily's marriage dissolved. Business partners scattered. Friends vanished. The entire empire of appearances and shallow connections had collapsed in on itself. I sat in the living room as dusk settled Linda's photograph in my hands. The house didn't feel empty anymore. It felt balanced. The crushing weight I had carried since the night she died had finally lifted. My phone buzzed again and again. Reporters wanting quotes, distant relatives pretending to be shocked, Frank confirming the promissory notes were filed with the court. Outside, summer lightning lit the horizon. I thought about Michael and Emily, each sitting alone in the ruins they'd created, finally living the same isolation they'd forced on their mother. They had learned the hardest truth: when you build your life on lies and selfishness, when you declare that family is not your problem, you end up in a world where no one owes you a thing. Thunder rolled in the distance, and I smiled grimly. The storm they had sown had finally come home. September rain slicked the courthouse steps. I straightened my tie, the same one I'd worn to Linda's funeral, and climbed the stairs to the heavy oak doors. Frank was waiting inside, briefcase in hand, his face carefully neutral. "They're both here," he said quietly. "Separate tables, of course. They haven't spoken since July." The courtroom was nearly empty. Michael sat beside his public defender, Armani suits, traded for an ill-fitting gray jacket borrowed from the county. 6 months of stress had aged him a decade. Across the aisle, Emily hunched over next to a bargain bin, attorney papers slipping through his hands. Judge Miller read through the case with clinical detachment. The promissory notes, now enforceable by law, demanded repayment of $3.2 million plus interest and penalties. The figure had ballooned to nearly $4 million. "Mr. Hayes," the judge said, addressing me, "these documents request immediate liquidation of all available assets to satisfy this debt. Is that correct?" "Yes, Your Honor." Michael's lawyer rose. "Your Honor, my client is facing criminal prosecution. His assets are already frozen. This is essentially blood from a stone." "Blood from a stone," I echoed softly, like trying to get 5 minutes of time from a son for his dying mother. The judge's gavel cut through the low murmurs. The process rolled forward with mechanical efficiency. Every asset cataloged, every future paycheck garnished, 25% of all income indefinitely until the debt was satisfied. When it was done, I stood to leave, but Michael's voice stopped me. "Dad." I turned. He looked hollow, broken. Gone was the confident executive who once sneered that his mother's cancer wasn't his problem. "Was it worth it?" he asked. "Destroying your own children?" "I didn't destroy you, Michael. I revealed you. There's a difference." Emily spoke next, her voice ragged. "We could have been a family again after Mom died. We could have come together." "No," I said simply. "Family means love, sacrifice, showing up when it matters. You both failed that test when it counted." This I gestured to the courtroom, the piles of documents, the lawyers, the judge. "This is just paperwork." I left them sitting there, two strangers bound by DNA, and drove to Riverside Cemetery. The September air was cool autumn, beginning to creep in. Linda's grave was covered in fresh flowers. I'd brought them myself that morning. "It's done," I told her stone marker. "They've lost everything they valued more than you, the money, the status, the false friends. All gone." I knelt, pressing my weathered hand to the granite. I kept my promise. They learned that every choice has a price. The wind stirred the oak branches, and I heard footsteps behind me. Susan appeared carrying her own bouquet. "Feel better?" she asked, gently arranging flowers in the vase. "I feel finished," I said after a long moment. "Not better, not worse, just finished." "What now?" Susan asked. I stood brushing the dirt from my knees. Now I live simply quietly the way Linda and I should have lived instead of sacrificing everything for children who treated us like ATMs. That's harsh, Robert. That's truth, Susan. We stood together in silence, two old souls surrounded by headstones. After a long pause, she asked, "Do you think you'll ever forgive them?" Forgiveness requires repentance. They're only sorry they got caught, sorry they lost. When they're sorry for what they did to her, maybe we can talk about forgiveness. As we walked back toward our cars, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. I opened it. A photo of Michael in handcuffs being led into federal prison, forwarded by someone who thought I needed to see it. I deleted it without emotion. Another buzz. A news alert about Emily filing for bankruptcy, moving back in with Mark's mother, who had taken pity on her. I blocked every news alert, every unknown number. The show was over. The audience could leave. That night, I sat in my workshop rebuilding a carburetor for a neighbor's old Ford. Simple work, honest work, the kind where problems had solutions and effort brought results. Linda's photo watched me from the bench, her smile still bittersweet. "I'm not the man you married," I told her again. But I kept my word. They chose money over love, success over family. Now they have neither. The engine part clicked into place clean and true. Tomorrow I'd help another neighbor with their brake lines. Small kindnesses for people who understood that relationships weren't transactions. Michael would serve 8 to 12 years. Emily would spend decades clawing her way out of bankruptcy. The promissory notes would trail them forever, a reminder that actions have consequences, that love rejected becomes debt collected. I shut off the shop light and headed inside. In the darkness, Linda's ring glimmered in the moonlight on my finger. Forever and always. A promise kept, even if keeping it had turned me into someone she might not have recognized. But she was gone, and the living must live with their choices. I had made mine. They had made theirs. And the ledger was finally balanced. Thank you for listening to this story of family betrayal and the ultimate price of abandoning those who love us most. Where are you tuning in from today? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and share your own experiences. Have you ever faced a similar situation where family chose money over love? Let's talk in the comments.